Okay, thank you very much. So let me begin by thanking the permanent missions of Pakistan, Finland, and Costa Rica, the World Bank and UNDESA for co-hosting this very important event. We're here to talk about a once-in-a-generation opportunity to leverage lessons from the COVID-19 crisis to enhance social protection systems worldwide. I'm sure you all appreciate the context and you all understand the importance of raising this question at this very critical juncture. As was just mentioned, and as we are all deeply aware, that this pandemic has deeply imprinted the lives of the rich and poor, young and old alike. But its greatest weight has fallen on the poor worldwide. Simulations of predicted poverty trends show an increase on the order of up to 135 million in terms of monetary poverty through the income measure, and 550 million in multidimensional poverty. And this is, we have to remind ourselves that this in simulated predicted increase in poverty trends are on top of the 750 million who were poor by the 1.9 per day poverty line already, or the 1.3 billion who were labeled as poor by the MPI measure before the pandemic. So we're talking about colossal numbers. A significant number of individuals have been pushed into poverty, regardless of how you measure it, as a result of the crisis. We have seen firsthand in our countries that livelihoods have been decimated at a very wide scale. And it is not just lives and livelihoods. The cost of this pandemic are staggering in terms of hunger, children dropping out of school, foregone healthcare, and unfortunately, it is always women and girls who disproportionately bear the brunt of this tragedy. So there is therefore a need to mobilize a major recommitment to the first Sustainable Development Goal by all the concerned actors. When I had my slides, I was speaking about the magnitude of the problem in monetary poverty terms and multidimensional poverty terms. I had brought to bear the experience from Pakistan in terms of the scale of the challenge. We talked about the 24 million breadwinners, the 160 million dependents, how their livelihoods had been decimated. And just before we had disconnected, I was talking about the response of the government of Pakistan, how we had allocated $1.25 billion as a result of which over 100 million individuals had been supported. It was an extremely difficult situation, and we're very humbled that we had the ability to reach out to these families at the most dire moment of their lives. But whilst I was executing this, led by the Prime Minister, I always kept asking myself one question. And the question was, is there a community of practice that I could lean on? Has somebody else done this before? We were executing this end-to-end digitally, and I always, and whilst I was in the midst of deploying this, I would ask myself, is there a repository of information, a kind of archive of lessons learned that I could lean on, that I could draw on for expertise, support of call where I could ask questions, and unfortunately, there was none. So in the international system, we've got systems and structures and repositories and archives and capacity building initiatives and networks for conceivably every thematic area. But when it comes to social protection, there isn't that port of call, that community of practice, that network that you can lean on, immediately. And I hope that this meeting that we're having today is a peg in a process which will lead us towards establishing that community of practice where cabinet ministers could go and post their questions and get instant answers and speak to their peers and learn from each other. Of course, there are many international initiatives that you can draw on while you do that. But this clearly is a time in the post-COVID situation where we are today making a call for the establishment for such a structure. So with this as a background, let me quickly talk about and review trends and lessons in social protection and take that as a framing for our conversation on the government-to-government knowledge platform, which we hope to create at some point at the culmination of a process which we are today kicking off. Now, there has been significant growth in social assistance over the past couple of decades. There is a surge of programs, and there's a lot of evidence which has been estimated by the Social Assistance Politics and Institutions database. Some of the poorest countries and regions have been scaling up at a remarkable pace. For example, an average of 14 programs per year were introduced in Africa alone over the period 2010 to 2015, which is a very healthy growth in this sector and a very remarkable acceleration. Now, while on an encouraging direction, coverage is still relatively low worldwide. Only half the people living in the bottom quintile of the income distribution is covered by social assistance. In low-income countries, 80% aren't so, a rate that tends to improve as one climbs the income ladder. And on my slides, there was quite a nice illustration of how this plays out visually. And I will, subsequent to this session, mail the slides so you can have a look for yourself. Now, social assistance, as you know, is one of the best evaluated fields in development, including through a wide use of experimental evaluations and systematic reviews. The evidence shows that programs like cash transfers in particular are not just a cost, but that they are an investment. In fact, cash is spent effectively by beneficiaries, and we have seen that increasingly on ground where cash is dispersed. Programs don't incentivize employment, we know that from evidence, but rather it encourages it. Cash transfers can reduce stress, which is a key source of violence within a household, and programs can foster economic growth by building human capital, enhancing resilience to shock, spurring entrepreneurship, facilitating job transitions, and bolstering economic multipliers. In fact, studies show that for every dollar provided as cash transfers, between 30 cents and $2.6 are donated to the local economy. The programs actually pay for themselves. That's one way of looking at it. So the more you upscale social protection interventions, the more the size of the economic stimulus. So far, what I've shared with you is a review of evidence, is what the science and evaluations tell us. When COVID hit, we are now witnessing the single largest scale of social protection. Over 16 months, over 3,300 measures have been introduced by governments. This is the largest share of which comes in the form of social assistance. Cash transfers, in fact, account for about 1/3 of the global response, and in over a dozen cases, they reached over 80% of the country's population. The coverage of cash transfers in countries was over 100 million individuals. In percentage terms, Pakistan's cash assistance, in percentage of population covered terms, our cash assistance was the third largest, following the United States and Japan. And in terms of speed, experts and colleagues independently have estimated that Pakistan's response was the fastest. In the first week, we dispersed cash to 1 million households, which means about 60 million individuals when multiplied by the number of individuals in a household. I just want to say in the end that the pandemic is showing that countries with delivery systems in place can respond much better than the others. And in fact, in Pakistan in the year 2019, just after the formal approval of the program called Asas, which means compassion in our local language, Urdu, we had made massive investments in a new biometric payment system, in a data analytics mechanism, in the SMS gateways. And it was, in fact, these capabilities that we pieced and patched together to execute the emergency cash operations. So it is clear, both from the experience of Pakistan as well as other countries, that countries with delivery systems in place can respond better and faster. Also, COVID-19 has spurred a vast range of practical innovations in delivery. Their experiences from Togo and Nigeria, who've used big data and machine learning techniques, and Thailand, Morocco, Colombia, Brazil made use of a vast set of app-based enrollment systems. So it's clear that prior experience, reliance on technology, and innovations have mattered deeply to both to structure and design delivery systems as well as take them to scale. Yet the pandemic presents many challenges, and we know that spending is uneven across countries, and even in low-income settings, this only amounts to $4 per person, a level that is over 200 times lower than in high-income countries. Programs tend to be of limited duration and last for just around 4 months on the average. Only 1/10 of the cases, cash transfers have been extended in duration. So if I step back and reflect on the past year, it is clear that such historical social protection response didn't occur by accident. Instead, it is the result of countries' deliberate investments in evidence generation, learning from each other, and the creative practices which are leading countries to responding way faster and effectively than they have in the past. There are so many practical lessons that are emerging from our collective rich response. For example, in terms of using technology for identification of potential beneficiaries, enrolling them into programs, making them timely payments, or connecting social assistance and insurance for informal workers. So my question is, how can we make such precious learning and innovations available to improve social protection systems? How can we make these learnings available more broadly? How can we institutionalize a system to foster learnings in a much better way, in a much more facilitative and faster way? And it is with this in view that I present for your consideration a set of recommendations. Firstly, I believe that this learning could be generated and could be shared via a global government-to-government community of practice on social protection. Its global nature means that it would be open to any country around the world, hence opening the doors of learning to everyone, strengthening ongoing exchanges and connecting countries facing similar quandaries. Governments would be at the center of the initiative and will be given the opportunity to directly tap knowledge and tap expertise in other fellow countries, from frontline responders to higher level policymaking. It could be a vibrant initiative with a lean structure, a so-called community of practice, and it can be run virtually. And that could serve global issues as well as accommodate regional and thematic issues, both in terms of policy and practical how-to design. This is not just an event. What I'm referring to is not an event-based structure, but a permanent platform operating around the year, facilitating countries, allowing them to network, learn from each other, generate evidence, and share it publicly. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are learning so much from the crises, and we have gone so far in responding. Let's now turn the tide and build on the learning. Let's translate today's response into a knowledge investment for tomorrow. If history is of any lesson, the best response is preparedness. As I said in the beginning, many details need to be worked out, and today is only one step in a longer journey. So I hope that you'd be with us for such a journey, and I look forward to your views. I want to once again thank the transformative leadership of the permanent representatives of Pakistan, Finland, and Costa Rica for spearheading this, and for the World Bank, for the Multidimensional Poverty Peer Network, and for UNDESA to come to the table earlier on during the course of these deliberations. As I said earlier, this is the first baby step on a longer journey, but a journey that we hope will lead to tangible outcomes in structuring the government-to-government network. And I keenly look forward to the next steps. Thank you very much.